All right, so here's our webinar on the Iowa Intermediary Networks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lori Warden, Associate Director of Workplace Learning Connection. I'm joined by my co-chair of the Iowa Intermediary Network.
Hi, I'm Erin Swankut, and I am a Work-Based Learning Program Coordinator with the Hawkeye Community College program called Cedar Valley Career Connections.
We're real excited to be here this afternoon to share with all of our counselors across the state some exciting information about a tremendous resource that's available to you through the Iowa Intermediary Network members. And we're going to share a little bit about why we came to be and the types of services that we can offer you, and all in an effort to connect business and education in high quality, age appropriate work-based learning opportunities.
As you can see by this map, the intermediary programs are broken down across the state by community college regions. So whatever community college you associate with, whichever region you're in, is the learning intermediary in that area who would serve you. At the end, we'll include contact information for each of your intermediaries. But this is kind of the general view of where we're at and where we're broke down by. Some of our program names are listed there. And like Lori and I said, we co-chair the group, but we're all kind of based in our areas and do slightly different things with our programs that we'll explain a little bit more about. We're also under the Department of Education and have Kelly Deemer as a representative that we work with there. At the bottom of this, there's a hyperlink that you can click on when we get it all uploaded that will show our intermediary network website right now. So, Laura, do you want to go to that real quick?
Sure, we're going to toggle to that real quick. Pardon me while I toggle.
This website will give you links to all of our different programs. If you kind of look down, it talks a little bit about who we are, what we do, and then on that map, if you click on the map, it'll take you to the breakdown of every region. So that way, if the program has a website, if you've got all of our contact information there, so that way you can find your intermediary in your region and connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
And just to kind of explain while we're getting this going, if you're asking yourself, what is an intermediary? What do these people do? Really, what we do is just connect students to the career opportunities to help them make informed educational and career decisions. And the purpose behind that is that we want students to start thinking about their careers as they're in middle school, high school, even elementary school to some extent, that we want to expose them to some careers, but really just so that way they're making better choices as they get started. So are they going to a community college, a 2-year, 4-year college? Do they need a degree? Are they able to go in the workforce, get reimbursement, things like that, so that way students really see their experiences, see their opportunities before they get into those next steps after high school. So really, we are just the connector between the student and the business. We want to be able to help the school bridge those gaps, and also the businesses, so that way they're not getting infiltrated with calls or things like that. That's what the intermediaries do, is really make that transition.
So like any organization across the state, of course, we do need funding to exist, and just a little history about how that funding came to be. Workplace Learning Connections, so the organization that I work for, actually started as a grassroots effort in 1998, and it started out with funding from regional partners, school to work monies. For those of you that have been in the business for a while, I'm sure you're quite familiar with some of those grants from the late 90s, tech prep, and some other local funds. And we were asked to develop a model for regional work-based learning, a system that would have an equitable service delivery plan, that would have a viable sustainability plan, and that could be replicated if it showed that it had a data supporting return on investment. So we were lucky enough to be part of an early consortium back in 2005 that went to the Iowa legislature with great leadership from our local representatives and our liaison with the state, Steve Oval. So in 2005, we were able to create a policy framework and to create really a repository for funding. So that happened now about 11 years ago. In 2010 and 11, we had some seed funds that could start the beginnings of each of the regional community college intermediaries. And then in 2013, we received 1.5 million as that's appropriated to each of the 15 regions. So each of the regions receives approximately $100,000 to do the work. For many of the regions, that's funds partially the programming that they have in place. But we're very grateful to our state legislators for appropriating that money that allows us to provide those services to you, all in an effort to better prepare and connect students through work-based learning activities. So that's just a little bit about kind of the origins of how we came to be and how the monies flow. So the deeper purpose of that grant, again, as Erin had mentioned, it's all in an effort to make sure that students transition into their post-secondary steps, whether that's world of work, a training program, a short-term certificate program, bachelor's degree, master's degree, doctorate, whatever their dreams are, to make sure that they have a solid game plan going into their post-secondary portion of their life. We provide communication and coordination in order to build and sustain those relationships between employers and educational systems and the community at large. So we'll talk a little bit in a moment about our role as a convener in the community and really getting not only our organization and schools and businesses connected, but other organizations that serve youth as well. We provide that one-stop shop, that single point of contact. One of the reasons that our organization was created in '98 is because we had to answer that need. We had lots of school representatives wanting to interact with the business community, advocating for their students' opportunities, and we had lots of businesses that wanted to participate, but there were concerns about relevance, timing, appropriateness, and so they really needed a professional involved, and that's how the intermediary work came to be. We also, as representatives of the Iowa Intermediary Network, facilitate attainment of portable credentials. So the NCRC, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, that particular certification is something that we offer through the internship program, and I know other intermediaries offer that or help facilitate or raise awareness of that wonderful tool that's available to students across the state of Iowa. Develop work-based learning capacity with our employers, and what we mean by that is just educating them on the appropriateness of the various core programs that we offer. So training them how to be fantastic classroom speakers, how to host a job shadow or an intern, or how to host a really quality tour at their site. So that really goes into that, providing excellent core service programming.
Great. Kind of transitioning with that, all the intermediaries do four main things. The work that we do is, we have a lot of different opportunities to get involved with the community, but these are the four things that, especially with the grant that we work under, this is what we're targeted to do. And really, it's about getting students into businesses to really see that one-on-one opportunity at the job site. So the main four core services are worksite tours, so actually going to the business, touring as a large group, interactive guest speakers, so that may be bringing them into the classroom, but we want them to still be able to experience what that job is. So through trainings, through demonstrations, through sharing of the tools that they use in their job, that's what we would expect with a guest speaker in the classroom, not just somebody to do a PowerPoint, but somebody to really engage the students and show them what they do. Job shadows are the next step. So students really get to spend just a brief amount of time, usually about 2 to 8 hours, I would say would be a fairly average job shadow depending on the site, and just to see what somebody does at their work, to really kind of get that initial taste of, is this something that I want to do? And then the internship is that next step that's a little bit more planning. They're at a site for weeks at a time, really getting in and doing the projects that they would be expected to do on that job site. So it's much more of a real life experience for them that they get to do a hands-on hands-on internship.
And as our core services are being rolled out through the various intermediaries across the state, many of them have started with tours and speakers, and then as we've got businesses more engaged and feeling a little bit more comfortable, have transitioned into those a little bit more of a commitment with hosting job shadows and internships.
We also have targeted industries that we're working with. These are ones that the state has seen as a need of. We either have retiring populations in these areas or just growing demands that are really going to be something that are going to be opportunities for the students. So they're areas that we work with them. One of those areas is advanced manufacturing. We know that there is going to be a lot of turnover, a lot of people aging out of this workforce. So that's one focus. We tend to do large groups, so National Manufacturing Week, things like that, and really trying to get students engaged in that area. Information technology is an ever-growing field, so we want to make sure that we're keeping up with that and having those businesses know what's going to be their next workforce coming up with the students. Biosciences, including healthcare, is another large targeted area that our students work in. STEM, we work with, most of the intermediaries are working with regional STEM hubs, so we're able to join up with them on events and really just expose students through that organization as well. Residential and commercial construction, yet another field. Again, some of those specialized jobs, those apprenticeship type of jobs, things like that are in a huge demand, and you just see less and less that there's people aging out and people needing to come into those, so really exposing students to the opportunities in that. And then other areas have specific things that they've identified on more of a local level too that they're working with, and we really do work with any industry. These are just the ones that we'll sometimes do more targeted events with, or different days, things like that. But yeah, opportunities for students in any career, any pathway out there, we're working with them on. Great. The next process is kind of how we operate as intermediaries. That we go by these four standards that we use here. The convene, connect, measure, and sustain are ways that we make our programs run and that we can maintain. So the first one is convene. We really want to get the interested parties. So for things like this, it's convening groups of school partners that can understand more of what we do, connecting all of the community colleges as a region. As intermediaries, we meet monthly to talk a little bit more about what's working, what's not, what do we need to do, ways to grow our programs. So we meet with employers, the public-private community, government organizations, really anyone that we can either assist with what they're doing or that we can work with to benefit our programs, I guess would be the best kind of way to say that. So you'll see other programs maybe that do something similar or little bits, or like with us with the STEM Hub, we try to take advantage of all of the organizations out there that exist and that are able to work together in this way. And really the connection to what's being done, who's out there with similar ideas or would like to partner up. What's that one common goal that we can join forces with? So that's really where we see that intermediary as being kind of a clearinghouse in a central area that we can figure out who these partners are and make sure that work-based learning is something that's moving forward. Again, we have statewide colleagues, so everybody is doing this across the state. We've got support from the Department of Education and really just ways that we're all connected. There's also a national intermediary network that we are a part of, and that's where this theory and philosophy comes from. So we join up and try to get the best practices that we can to serve the students.
Great. And I'm going to share a little bit about the other two important factors of intermediary work, and that has to do with measuring and sustaining. So in measurement, what are your outcomes? With every program that we offer as intermediary facilitators, we measure our outcomes. So as an example, with our organization, every time a speaker goes out, every time a tour is hosted for a classroom, every job shadow, every internship, everything we do with our teachers, we measure and report that back to our stakeholders and our constituents. So it's very important that we have some measurable outcomes and we have some consistent measurables that we share across all of our fellow intermediaries across the state. And we're going to share a little bit of that data with you in just a moment. And then how do we track these and report that information? So utilizing technology to do that, to make sure that we're capturing as many responses as possible, and that, again, we're reporting back that information to our constituents. So that's something that we do, you know, at a mid-year and end of year. We use an annual report to get that information out to our business partners and our school districts to make sure that what we're promising with our programming is actually being delivered. And then what are your goals and who is doing what? It's important that we're listening to the needs of our districts. We have a rather prescribed menu of services that we offer through Workplace Learning Connection because we've been around for a number of years. But I know many of our intermediaries across the state are very responsive to whatever the goals and immediate needs are of their districts. And then to make sure if there's another organization that's also doing similar work, as an example, it could be one of our regional STEM hubs, that we're actively coordinating those activities and reporting back to each other those good measurements and good outcomes that we're having. In the sustain mode, it's very important that we don't necessarily have just one particular source of our funding. So I know that many of our intermediaries are working towards finding additional leverage state funds. As I mentioned before, each of the intermediaries receives approximately $100,000 from the Department of Ed through a grant process. But we also have some intermediaries that are receiving funding directly from the schools or may have local and regional matches from such resources as county boards of economic development, could be through some additional state funds such as WTED funding. Some of our intermediaries have received some additional funding through their area education agencies, and certainly opportunities to pursue some local grants and some in-kind support. Along with that sustaining also comes a considerable amount of responsibility in communicating and collaborating what your outcomes are. And then certainly maintaining relationships with all of the stakeholders that we work for and with. So we want to show you a resource where you can actually see what deliverables were reported last year in the statewide Work-Based Learning Intermediary Network fiscal year 2015 report. So we do have a link, a hot link to that you can take a look at this and see basically all the information for every district across, or each community college district across the state, and the important work that they have been doing. I'm sorry, is this the one page forward with that one?
No, I think that's just going to zoom. You can just scroll down.
Okay. So just as an example, and again, please feel free to take a look at this and see what your region has been up to, but we are required to report on all of our activities, how we spent the funding, and then the actual items that were delivered. So that's through those core services. So please take some time to review that document. I think you'll find that really interesting to see what's going on in your particular district. Anything else on that, Erin, that you'd like to share?
Great. Next, we wanted to share a little bit more of how this is impacting the work we do. So these numbers are a combined result of the Cedar Valley Career Connections program and the workplace learning results. So to share a little bit about kind of what our students have done and their results, this is coming back from job shadow surveys that we've gotten back. So after a student has gone out into the workplace and come back after seeing a work-based learning experience, how has it impacted some of the things they're doing? So the first thing that we asked is, did it impact your choice of high school coursework? So 76% of these students are increasing or changing their mind on what they're doing for classes based on what they've done here. So maybe it is encouraging them to take an extra class in their field, or to take a concurrent enrollment class, or something that something has changed so that they've kind of gotten their coursework on a different path so that they want to do this. Another way is it influenced their selection of the career field. And so we've got 65% have changed or influence their career in some way. So many students have an idea of what's going in, but sometimes it opens them up to something new, or has taken them in a completely different direction. So as far as increasing awareness of the career opportunities in their community and their region, that number is big. It's 83 to 88%. Many of these students drive past businesses, they see them every day, they have no idea what actually goes on in there. So really this exposure shows them and says, did you know you can do this right here in your community? Positively influence their decision to live and or work in the region. This is 61 to 69%, but great results there, because it really does say, show students maybe you do want to stay around here, or stay in Iowa, stay in the region, and that there are great career opportunities available to you here. As far as experiencing or helping make decisions related to their continued education or college major, 70 and 73% respectively have increased their decision or changed their mind in terms of what they can do. By going to that job shadow, they understand what's next in my college career, what maybe would be a better major, what would maybe be a different route that they can take. So all good influences, all good impacts, and really showing the work of what that work-based learning intermediaries are doing out there.
And certainly any time that our counselors can have another tool for young people to use to help refine their coursework selection or those next steps is a really great tool to utilize. One of the requirements that we have through the Iowa Intermediary grant process is that we are asked, and many of us are delighted to interact with advisory boards. So that may look a little different across the state, but the real purpose of these advisory boards for the work we do is to help strengthen those relationships, building some new bridges between businesses and education, so that, again, we can help prepare kids for those decisions that they're making in the next few years of their life. And then to also bring knowledge of what the needs are out in the workforce. What are those competencies? What are those resources? What are those insights that our business people are bringing into those conversations to help guide the advice that we're offering to students through their work-based learning experiences? So even though those look a little different across the various intermediaries, it's all about assisting us in the direction of our work, really being able to share what the demands of employers are, or what the demands of the schools are, the types of challenges that they have. It's an opportunity for professional development. So we have many of our advisory board members that are very engaged in some of our teacher programs. So they're very happy to assist with those types of programs for both teachers and students. They assist us with ideas for student placement. There probably isn't a week that goes by that we're not tapping into our advisory board members. And with our organization, we work very closely with sector boards and economic development to help us with that. And those are great relationships. They really help us with those key contacts. Also make us aware of new projects and activities that are going on within the community, and help us avoid some of those potential roadblocks or concerns that maybe a particular industry would have. So they offer us recommendations on how to improve our work, help us reach out to additional contacts within businesses, or even to help recruit students, spreading the word about certainly Cedar Valley, but any of our intermediaries in the work that we're doing, and assist with strategic planning. That's another factor of our Iowa Intermediary Grant. We do need to provide a strategic plan for our work, and certainly tap into the wealth of knowledge of our advisory board members to assist with that. What's on the horizon? What are those emerging needs in the workforce? Certainly they're very, very active people within, supporting the activities directly, and then helping to evaluate effectiveness of our program and looking closely at some of that evaluative data that we report out on.
I just wanted to add a little bit to that, what Lori was saying there. She mentioned, it's fine, teacher programs. That's one thing that we didn't talk a lot about in the previous presentation. Our focus is on involvement for students, but we also do things for teachers. So just this past week with my program with the Cedar Valley Career Connections, we had teachers, all the CTE teachers from a group of small rural schools get together and go to tours in their respective areas. So that way the teachers then are seeing what there is out there in these tours and the careers, and can really bring that directly back into their classroom as well, whether it's bringing in a speaker or sending their students on job shadows, whatever it may be, it connects them in a different way too. So there are opportunities out there for the schools with the teachers, counselors, administrators, as well as the students. And also with the advisory board, if any of you would like to be a part of your area advisory board, contact your local intermediary, and I'm sure they would appreciate any input that you would like to provide for them.
Great. So now we'd like to turn it back to Brett if there's any questions that have been posed by any of our participants today.
We don't have any questions entered into the system, but if you'd like to ask a question live, you can raise your hand. I can unmute you one at a time, or go ahead and type in your questions now, and I'll relay them to Erin and Lori. Well, I think you guys must have done a great job. I think you did a great job. I'm going to wait about 10 more seconds. Oh, here we go. Is this mostly for secondary students, or can elementary be involved?
That's a great question, and that certainly depends on where your particular intermediary is at. With Workplace Learning Connection, we do offer K-12 programming. K-5 is probably the smaller portion of what we do. Our biggest programming would be more for middle school and high school students. So that would be a question you'd probably want to pose directly to the intermediary that is serving your particular region.
Any other questions? Regarding internships, is there a standard or expectations that we could give to our teachers?
Internships are a little bit different with it. I know some programs are trying to build that. What I think is the best thing is to talk to your intermediary, to work directly with your school to figure out the best practices for doing internships. For the intermediary side of it, really what I think a lot of the programs are striving towards or going towards is that we would coordinate the connection between the business and the student. So the intermediary would call a business and arrange, figure out times if they're able to do this, what their expectations are, communicate that back to the school, because then most internships would have to be done through a curricular setting. So the students are going to need to get credit for them in some way to, I guess, for liability purposes and things like that. So it would depend on the school and how that is set up. A school MOC coordinator would be the most likely person to take on that internship role so that the student is able to get credit, or if it's within a specific field. So if it's a business internship, that business teacher would be able to award those students that credit. So it's going to be more on an individual setup with a lot of the schools and a lot of the intermediary programs. And like Lori had said, Workplace Learning has a real good, strong internship program. Some of the other programs that are a little newer are still developing those relationships and developing those programs.
Mm-hmm. So again, I would probably, make the suggestion that the guidance counselor contact their local intermediary, and if there's any information that we're able to offer through Workplace Learning Connection, or any guidance or steps in how to get that process started within your school, we're certainly happy to offer that guidance.
Do we have any other questions? Could the intermediary help with liability questions that businesses ask for job shadows and internships? The last time the state had anything that I know of is from 2005. Could the intermediaries help advocate at the state level for updated legislation?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's, certainly something that has been, brought to the forefront with the expansion of the intermediary concept. The good news is that we do have protections within state code that protect our employers, that protect our students, and that protect our school districts. So I think, again, would want to refer you back to a conversation with your local intermediary, that if you, would like to see where that's noted, we have some decent resources that we can pass on to you of where that's noted in state code, and, recommendations of how we protect our business folks. Everything that we do, we have a sign-off from parents, a sign-off from guidance, giving approval for a student to participate. And certainly with the internship program, we have several documents that are signed off by student, parent, host, and our guidance counselors, making sure that everybody knows what the requirements are of that particular academic endeavor. So yes, again, we're working very closely with our representation for the work that we do to make sure that we get that clarified and that everyone feels comfortable in participating and there isn't any gray areas, that our businesses know that they are covered in their participation.
There is one request as going forward as partners. They recently officially changed the title from guidance counselor to school counselor.
Oh, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Lori and Aaron while we have them live on the line? Okay, well, we will have this recorded so you can go back and review any of the great information that was provided today, including Aaron and Lori's contact information. That will be on the final slide of the PowerPoint that we load with the video recording onto the ICAN and ISCA websites. That will probably be up no later than by Monday. Just takes us a couple of days. But if there are no other questions, I'd like to thank Lori and Aaron for their time today and thank all of you for listening.